Good morning. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone is well. Hope you've had a good time on the charts this week. Hope you had a good time on the charts yesterday. But we're really glad that you could join us. Karibuni sana. Good to see lots of people streaming in here. And also, that's on the Zoom meeting and of course also on our social media handles. Karibuni sana. Hope you guys are well. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. I will be your host today. Mitch is also here. I know you've been seeing a lot of him this week, but he's working in the back office today. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also in the chat box. Of course, for the guys who are here on Zoom, for the guys who are watching us on the social media platforms, just make sure that if you do want to interact with us, make sure that you do come here. Use the links that are given there in the video descriptions in the various social media handles that you're using, and you will find your way here. So feel free to ask your questions. For the guys who are here on Zoom, on the Q&A section, I will be looking at those questions at the tail end of this webinar. But as always, you don't need to wait until the end. You can still ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on, and you will get a favorable response. So apologies for starting off a couple of minutes late. There are a number of fundamentals that were coming out right now for the euro and the Great British Pound, and you can see them right there. So we did need to make a couple of alterations on our watch list. So you can't see the GBPs, a lot of weakness. We should be today. And on the euro, we will be waiting to see whether we will be seeing that strength coming in. So we already have made the changes on that. But before we end up looking at the watch list for today, let's have a look at what happened yesterday. A couple of currency pairs that we did have on our watch list that did fall off. So we'll start off with this one. This is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can't see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And you can't see the morning price was somewhere within here. We're waiting to see whether we could have gotten a sign, of the big sellers, maybe somewhere within this region, or maybe the market breaking to the downside. But you can see that the market was pretty much ranging within this region. Then it seems like during the US session, the market pushed itself off this region right here. There was a minor support area within here that the market did push itself off to the upside. And unfortunately, there were no selling opportunities for us on that one. It seems like there was a lot of strength on the USD that did come in, but we will see if that strength is still going to be kicking in, moving into today. But we have moved the USD on the watch list, but we will be looking at that in a bit. So we also did have the Australian dollar against the US dollar. For this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. You can see the illustration as well that he had pointed out in terms of what we are possibly expecting to look for the buys, or maybe the market coming back in within here, which was also the last region where we would have looked for buying opportunities. But you can't see that the sellers really sped up, especially coming down back within this region right here. And unfortunately, the buyers just couldn't sustain the price above this region to the upside. Of course, once the market broke to the downside of that red SNR, unfortunately, there was no trading opportunity for us. So the next one that we do have that unfortunately we do not have on our watch list for today, but we did have yesterday is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this region right here. We wanted to see whether we could get the price coming back in within here. Unfortunately, there was nothing of the sort, and you can see that the market pretty much ranged within this region. So almost something similar to what happened on the US dollar against the Swiss franc, and you can see that the market pushed to the upside. So I guess it could be some sort of correlation that's happening maybe amongst the Swiss franc pairs, but unfortunately not a currency pair that we'll be watching out for today. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, watching out to see whether we could have gotten buys, something similar to the Australian dollar against the US dollar, maybe something to do with the AUDs, or maybe the CAD and the USDs possibly moving together. And you can see that this one, we're waiting to see whether we could have gotten the price coming back in, at least within here to look for the buying opportunities. But you can see that the market really came back in within this region quite aggressively. And of course, in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, that's not really the best thing that we want to see, especially the opposite party speeding up. But consider the market pretty much ranged within here. It seems like maybe there could have been some small buying opportunities working off this region right here, but you definitely did need to manage your trade at the top, somewhere within that region right there. definitely not a currency pair that we'll be watching out for today. So the next one, the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, watching out to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. It seemed like the buyers had started to show up, and we're really waiting to see whether we could get the market lifting off this region to the upside. But unfortunately, it seemed that there was some price maybe somewhere within here that the buyers did need. And you can see that the market just came back in, within this region before it came back into the upside. And you can see that during the Asian session, that's when the market has really performed. Exactly what we wanted to see yesterday. Unfortunately, it didn't happen yesterday. It happened today. It's not uncommon because, of course, there's the New Zealand dollar in it. So maybe the Asian big boys did need to come in, to really push that market to the upside. So moving on into the last one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, watching out to see whether we could get some buys. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. Price came back in within this aggressive area somewhere within here, or just maybe shy of this area, because I know that the area was somewhere within here. But generally, you can see that the market nearly tapped that region before moving to the upside. And you can see that during the Asian session, that's when the buyers have really, really kicked it. So for this one, it seemed like the buys did work, but unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for today. So before we end up looking at the currency pairs for today and what the charts have to offer, let's look at a couple of screenshots that we did get, about 3. So shout out to Alvin, sending us in the euro against the US dollar. Seems like you got a really good selling opportunity on this one. So shout out to you for that, Alvin. Good sell somewhere within there on the 15-minute time frame. So you seem very happy about this trade, which is good. But one thing I'm not really happy about is where is your stop loss? We always talk about stop losses. So the market can easily turn at any given point in time without any warning. So it's always good to make sure that you have your profits covered. So when the market was coming down in as much as it's good, and the entry was really good, that one I'll have to give it to you. That was really good. But of course, when the market came down, of course, your stop loss needed to be maybe somewhere within here or somewhere within here, depending on the story of what has happened maybe before within this region, because the market could easily also come back in, maybe tap this region, maybe give some sort of retest or something of the sort. So you'll be too sure about that. But it's always good to make sure that you're covering and taking your profits as you're moving along. But shout out to you for that, Alvin. Happy to see that you're still in the game. So we also did get some screenshots from George Shege. If you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on gold. So I can't see a lot of technical analysis was going on this one. But good to see that you got the buy somewhere within this region, right? Your stop loss already above your point of entry. And it seems like you take profit or somewhere within this region right here, which is okay. Seems like the market was just about to hit your take profit. So shout out to you for that, George. And you also did get the sell. So I guess you do trade a lot of gold, because I can't see a lot of trades that have been closed, on this chart. But I can see that you did get a sell within the market coming down. And I can see that your stop loss is already below your point of entry. It seems like you had managed your trades within these regions right here, even as the market was coming down. And I can see that your take profit was down within that region right there. So shout out to you for that, George. So shout out to George and Alvin. And of course, really happy to see that guys are trading, which is ideally what we want to see. But also remember, guys, feel free to send in your screenshots. We're always happy, to see what you guys are up to on the chat. So you can send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. And also you can use the same contact details to reach out to us. Of course, if you're, having any issues on the charts and we can't see how best we can end up helping you. So shifting gears into matters today. So you can see the watch list right there for the guys who are joining us a bit late. This is what we're going to be watching out for today. So feel free to take note of that. So we're going to mix and match up the New Zealand dollar with everything on the buy side. That's the currency pairs. Move on to the yen. And last but not least, the Great British Pound pairs. And then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities. So the first one, the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, also a currency pair that we did have. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So we wanted to see either the market breaking this region to the downside, or maybe if the buyers within this region could have possibly pushed the market back up, maybe somewhere as close as possible within here, we could have looked for selling opportunities. There was also this region right here that he did point out, and you can see that the market was more or less holding within this sort of range that was here, and the market did come to the downside. Maybe it could have been some small selling opportunities within that region right there, but of course, maybe going down to a smaller time frame just to make sure that you get some decent risk to reward, as the market was coming back in within this region right here. So for this one, the levels are more or less the same. Reason being, price has not really moved far and beyond the regions that we were watching out for yesterday. You could easily find the market coming back in within the range. And you can see that right now, of course, we wanted to see the market break to the downside and pull back in within here. And you can see the illustration that Mitch did have, but we did need to see the market hold to the downside. So similar situation even with what's happening right now. We definitely need to see if either the market can break, to the downside of this region, maybe on this attempt, and the sellers do end up showing up, then we could potentially end up resuming with the sells. But also watch out for this region right here. I mean, if the market does come back in within the range, you can see that the sellers are sitting somewhere within here. And it's always best of practice. Sell with sellers, buy with buyers, like we always repeat. And I know that we sound like a broken record, but it's the best thing to do if you want to increase the chances of your trades working out. So just make sure you watch out for that. If the market comes back in and let's say you can't get something within this region, maybe a slowdown of the buyers and maybe the sellers showing up, then just wait for this region at the top, somewhere within this area right here. You could find that maybe that's where the price that the sellers need, maybe to push the market to the downside. So watch out for that, but also remember the region at the top. Looks like some sort of a long shot, but in the Forex market, anything is possible. You could easily find the market going all the way till the top there. So the next one is the euro, the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out in an illustration of what maybe we were expecting, but you can see that the market was pretty much dead within this region right here, though maybe could have been some buys maybe within this region as the market came down, but that was towards the tail end of yesterday, and I'm sure that most of you are possibly not looking to trade that at that point in time. And you can see that during the Asian session, also a time when most of you are possibly not on the charts, you can see that the market has pushed itself to the upside quite well. So for this one, we will be waiting to see what happens. Don't chase. You can see that yesterday we were waiting for the market to break to the upside of this region. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen either during the London session and also during the US session. That couldn't happen. But during the Asian session, you can see that the Asian big boys have gotten the job done. Also not uncommon, especially considering the fact that the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar both end up being quite active during the Asian session. And you can see that the big boys, within the Asian session did come in. So the pullback is coming in. Let's see if we get something similar to what we were expecting yesterday. So if the market comes back in within this region, we'll be waiting to see whether we can get some sort of a slowdown, of the sellers within this region, maybe even an attempt to break to the downside. Then hopefully, possibly even the market could be coming back in, maybe even just to tap within this area. And if it does, it's okay. Just wait and see if you can get the market holding above here, and you could look for your buying opportunities. So watch out for that. Also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. It's also very possible price could come back in there, but remember that that's the last area where we will be watching out to see whether we can get buying opportunities. If the market breaks and holds below that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us unless the market holds above that region to the upside. So the next one is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. Don't look for sales now, especially when the price is holding just above this region right here. Consider the sellers have come in, and it seems that the buyers are starting to give the sellers a bit of an issue within this region. So you could find that maybe during the London market open at 10, price could actually be holding within here, and you could find the market push itself off this region to the upside, maybe come back in within this region. So just be a bit patient about that. The only time you could possibly look for sales within here could be if the market actually breaks beneath this region to the downside and actually comes back in and actually holds beneath that region, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get your sales. Unless you get that, don't look for your selling opportunities, because if the market holds above here and this is a probe, and we get the confirmation that this is a probe rather, then that means that there are some buyers who are sitting here and they could easily push the market up. And you could find that maybe at around 4:30, price could be back in within this region, and you could find that that sell could actually end up happening, off this region right here. So you need to be patient, but also watch out for this region at the top right there. It seems like also like some sort of a long shot, but it's also like some sort of a H1 level that we're watching out for, especially considering the story of what's happening on that time frame. You could find the market going back all the way there for some sort of a retest. So just make sure that you also watch out for that, but make sure that you're well aware that in case the market breaks above and holds above that region to the upside, then unfortunately, in terms of looking for selling opportunities, that is gonna be off the plan. So the next one, the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. For the guys who are new to trading, I know you're looking at this and you're looking at the watch list and you're wondering we should be selling the New Zealand dollar. So for some of them, we're selling, some are buying. It's all dependent on what the New Zealand dollar is. So you can't see that for the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc and the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar, the New Zealand dollar is to the left. So it's the base currency. It's the basis of what we're going to be doing. But on these others, it's to the right, which means that you need to buy the base currency, which is the one on the left, and simultaneously you will be selling the one on the right. So make sure that you take note of that so that you don't get confused. So for this one, we will be watching out for buying opportunities. And as we're buying the euro, we will be selling the New Zealand dollar. So don't look for your buying opportunities right now. That might not be the best of ideas. You could find that the market could easily end up pushing itself off this region to the downside. And especially considering the fact that the sellers are starting to show their faces within this region, then it means that they're definitely somewhere within here. So let's wait and see if we could get the pullback coming in, maybe somewhere as close as possible, within this region, then maybe we could look for the buying opportunities. But if the market breaks above this region to the upside, let's say these buyers within here are actually able to push the market to the upside and actually break above this region, then we could possibly end up resuming, with our buying opportunities. I wouldn't really advise you to look for buys within here. I know maybe some of you may be looking at this and you're like, this must be some sort of a buyer's region. John said buy with buyers, so I'm going to look for a buy there. You can look for a buy there. The only problem you could have is that you might get stuck within this region right here. And I don't really think you want to do that to yourself. So just make sure that you do end up waiting to see if you can get the market breaking to the upside. Unless maybe you're going to be looking at it at a very small time frame, maybe like on the 3 minute, 1 minute, maybe trying to get some really tight stop losses so that the risk to reward within here makes sense. But I would possibly end up advising that you maybe wait and see if you can get the market breaking above that to the upside. If you get the pullback and the hold, you could look for the buy. But give these sellers the benefit of doubt. If you push the market back in within this region, then definitely you can get a proper buying opportunity within here with some proper risk to reward on it. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So the next one, and the last New Zealand dollar pair, is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. Bear in mind that the New Zealand dollar is back to the left, so it's the base currency pair. It's the basis of what we're going to be doing. So for this one, almost something similar to the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. You can see some sort of correlation that's happening between these pairs where the market has come down and you can see some sort of a probe at the bottom right there. Similar situation with this one. So the story is the same. Don't look for the selling opportunities now. Wait and see if you can get either the market breaking to the downside of this region right here, or just give these bars the benefit of doubt. You never know what the London big boys could come in and do. They could easily push the market to the upside. You could find the market back in here, or maybe even all the way at the top there, maybe at around 4:30, during the US session, and you could find the sales happening then. So watch out for that. Also remember, considering the fact that there's the Canadian dollar and the US dollar, you could find that on these two, maybe, and of course, they always tend to be quite and a lot active during the US session. If you don't also end up seeing much happening right now during the London session, especially when we come at around 10, 10:30, 11, during the first hour of the London market open, considering also they also have the New Zealand dollar. The New Zealand dollar pairs also tend to work and move a lot at around 1 p.m. If you still can't see anything at that point in time, not really figured out why the New Zealand dollar pairs normally move at around 1. Maybe someone can let me know, but they normally tend to do that. If you can't find that happening, then just wait for the US session, maybe at around 3, 3:30, 4, 4:35, around that time you could find the markets moving. So that's pretty much it for the New Zealand dollar pairs. So we will move on to the yen pairs, and we will be mixing and matching them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one, Also, a currency pair that we did have yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can't see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out right there in terms of where we could look for the buys. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. It was just tapped back in within this region right here. So unfortunately, we couldn't get that. And sometimes the prices normally do that and the market does that. You get one chance, you miss it, that's it. And you can see that the market came back in within here. It did end up putting this illustration where we wanted to see the market break and hold to the upside. And you can see that the market did that. If you looked for your buys at around 3, you can see that the market did push itself off this region to the upside. And you can see that during the Asian session, that's when the market is approaching that region where he had identified yesterday. So for this one, watch out for these 3 areas right here. So just brought in the level that we had at the top there, just slightly lower, just to incorporate the fact that the market turned off this region to the
Your mic, John.
All right, I think there was a bit of a problem with my audio. Thanks for that, Mitch. So yeah, so let me just run through this one real quick. Watch out for those 3 areas right there. In case the market does end up breaking and holding above this region to the upside, then just make sure that you watch out for that region right there. You could look for the buys there, but give those sellers the benefit of doubt. In case the market comes back in within this region, then you could potentially look for the buying opportunities there. So I hope that that is clear. So the next against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also a currency pair that we're watching out for yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see that the buys did up aggressively, broke this region to the upside, held within that region, and you can see that the market went up, although in a very choppy manner, but at least the market did come in within this region right here. So for this one, for today, the levels are going to be the same. So we'll be watching out to see whether we can get the buying opportunities. If the market breaks above that region to the upside, watch out for that. Watch out for this region as well. And the same area that we had at the bottom. We could find the market turning off this area to the downside. And if it does, watch out for this region and also watch out for this region. So let's wait and see if we can get the breach to the upside. So I can also move this here. Maybe if we get the market breaking above this region to the upside, then we could potentially end up trying to see whether we could opportunities within here to continue moving up higher. So just make sure that you do take note of that, but give these sellers the benefit of doubt on buying opportunities, especially when the market is right within that seller's region. So the next one, the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do take note of those 3 areas right there. Right now, the market seems like it's just broken to the upside of this area, which is good. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in within this region. Hopefully, we get some sort of a pullback and a hold, within here, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get within there. So watch out for that. Also, do keep an eye out for these regions right here. Seems like a bit of a long shot, especially the one at the bottom right there. But like we always say, it comes to the Forex market, anything is possible. You could find the market all the way even back within that region, maybe during the US session. And you could find some proper buying opportunities happening off that area right there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So then is the euro against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant now. You can generally see the market going up. So also some good correlation that's happening amongst the yen pairs. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buys. Don't look Right now, the market is more or less within some sort of an SNR, especially on the higher time frame. So we will be waiting to see if either we can get a breach of this region to the upside to resume with those buying opportunities, or we can get the market pulling back, maybe somewhere as close as possible within these two regions right here. Then hopefully we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. But watch out for the region at the bottom breaks and holds. Fortunately, there will be no trade for us on the euro against the Japanese yen. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese. So for this one, we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for those three areas right there. You can also see some good correlation that's happening on this one, just like we've seen on the rest of the yen pairs. So for this one, at least it's broken to the upside. This one seems similar to I think the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So we will be waiting market pulling back in, within this region. If it gives us some sort of a retest, within here, maybe even some attempts of that region, which end up being unsuccessful. The upside, then ideally you could potentially try and see whether you can get some buying opportunities within that region right there. So do watch out for that. And of course, remember to watch out for the times that we do keep on pointing out, 10, 3, 4, 30. You could find some good trading opportunities. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are the Great British Pound pairs. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So do watch out for these three areas right here. And you can see that right now price is back in within a strategic area for us to look for selling opportunities. You can see that the sellers have pushed themselves off this region before, which is good. And you can see that they're starting to show, some signs of aggression within this area right here. So if you do end up within here, especially let's say if you are to go down a smaller time frame just to gain more context of what's happening. You can see that the sellers have started to show up. The buyers are still at demand, but generally you can see that the sellers are really now starting to come in. You could find that maybe at 10, based especially on the news events that have come out for the Great British Pound in terms of weakness, you could find that when the market could actually start to make a move to the down. So let's see if we could get these sales coming in. I mean, if you do end up attempting sales, you can actually end up having your stops maybe somewhere within here. There's no point having although to some extent there's a possibility you could find that the market could be literally quite spike, within this region right here before you actually end up getting the market moving to the downside. But sometimes I'm not inciting guys, but I'm just pointing it out. We've mentioned here before, you miss 100% of the shots you don't end up taking. And in any case, it's a calculated risk. It's not like you're gambling. So this is not like sport pesa. So I mean, if you end up taking the sales within here, and let's say you end up having your stops within here and the market starts to move to the downside, you can see that the risk to reward is good. That could be like some sort of a fast attempt. In case the buyers do end up reacting, the market goes to the upside and you get stopped out, don't fight with the market. Wait and see if it can end up having a second attempt, somewhere within here. So just watch out. Definitely doesn't seem too bad because ideally the sellers are themselves within that region. So let's see what happens on that one. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So for this one, you will have to be a bit more patient. We can see if the market can break beneath this region to the downside. If you get a probe or something of the sort, if the market attempts to break to the upside and comes back in, so maybe a probe to the upside, then that could ideally be something which you could consider, maybe a hold within here, maybe some sort of spikes, the market attempting to break above that region, weeks to the upside, then you could potentially end up attempting to see whether you could get your sell within there to come down. But right now, don't really jump in on the sells. You could easily find that the market could react off here. This one is not like the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. That one is within, the market is within some sort of a seller's region. This one is within a buyer's region, and you can clearly see that. So just make sure that you pass away those sellers actually do take out those buyers within that area. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, but yesterday we wanted to see whether we could get some buys. You can see the illustration that Mitch had there. We wanted to see the strong buyers come in, but unfortunately we just couldn't get them. And you can see that the market did the downside, and also somewhere within here, unfortunately, Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the buyers, within this region interested to push the market to the upside. Also, possibly something to do with the USDs because they're generally showing a lot of strength today. So we will be seeing whether that strength is still going to be showing up for the rest of the day. So for this one, let's see if the Great British Pound ideally will also be helping the USD because remember that the Great British Pound now we will be expecting to see weakness. So ideally, maybe they will be working together to push the market down lower. So as the Great British Pound weakness is coming in, the strength, the USD will also find the market continuing to move to the down. But let's watch out for these three regions right here. Right now, the market is just attempting to break this region to the downside. So let's wait and see if we can get that confirmation of the market breaking and possibly holding within here. It's just broken. So we don't really quite yet have the confirmation of the market holding to the downside. So be a bit patient on that. But if the market outside of this region and holds above here, then wait and see if you could get the market coming back in within this region. Like a level that's hanging, in the middle of nowhere within here, but it's also an area that's visible on. Because remember that when the big moves happen on these time frames, they're also visible on the bigger time frame. So there is definitely some sort of an SNR within here that you need to watch out for, and also somewhere at the top right here. Could be a long shot in terms of the price getting there, but let's keep our mind open. Easily find the market going all the way till within there. If it does, then at least you will be ready for it. So moving on into the second last currency pair. So this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, but yesterday we were trying to see whether we could get sells. We're waiting to see if we could get the market breaking beneath here to look for the selling opportunities. That didn't happen. You can see that during the London market open, price pushed itself off this region to the upside, came back in within here, but at least during the US session, you can see that the market was back in within some sort of a seller's region, gave one selling opportunity coming down. When the market came back in within the buyer's area, then it must have been game over for you. So I hope that it ends up being a lesson that you definitely need to make sure that you're in your trades. So for this one, we will be watching out for buying opportunities today. So we will be going the other way. So do take note of those three areas right there. So let's wait and see if we can get the market breaking above here to the upside. If it does, then you could look for your buying opportunities if you get the confirmation of the hold. And generally see that the sellers have reacted off there before. Although the good thing about it is, if you look at the reaction of the sellers within here, when the market came back in within here, if you compare this time, there's definitely a slowdown. And you can see that the buyers have really started to show up. Possibly could also be something to do, with the Great British Pound news events that have just come out. But even if that's the case, we still need to see a breach of this region to the upside. Then we could potentially look for a buying opportunity. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. Slim chance price will come back. If it does, then ideally you will be ready for it. So moving on into the last currency pair. So this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So also a currency pair we had yesterday, watching out for buying opportunities. The three areas that Mitch had pointed out, and also the regions, and also the illustration rather than of what we're expecting. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here just coming to the downside, and you can see that we're waiting to see whether we could have gotten some buys within here. The market just came shy of that area, and you can see that it pushed itself off this region quite a number of times. But it seems that during the US session, the buyers just really ran out of steam. The market did actually end up. So for this one, we will be watching out to see whether we can get some sales today. So we're not going to be looking for buys. So watch out for these three regions right here. So the semi-aggressive conservative region there. And right now the market has just tapped back in within this region. So don't look for selling opportunities now. Wait and see if you could get a breach to the downside, or if the buyers could push the market back up, maybe somewhere within this region, right? And you could find that could happen, maybe during the US session from around 4:30, you could find the market back in within here, or maybe somewhere within here. If the Great British strength, then we'll be timing to see whether we can get the sales, higher up within here. But watch out and make sure that this region at the top right here, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. In case the market breaks above that, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So that's pretty much it for all the currency pairs. So we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the NAS 100, come to this segment. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. When we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here, back within some sort of a seller's region. Can't see that the market came down once again during the US session. You can see that around 4:30 or thereabout, price was back in within this area right here. And you can see that that sell is the one that really went to the downside quite aggressively. Maybe it could have been some more opportunities within this region, especially after the market. You can't see that it held to the downside, and you did need to read that on a smaller time frame, to really see the detail of what was happening within that region. So for this one for today, we're still going to be keeping up with the sells. Remember that for as long as we're holding below that red SNR, then the bars should be to look for selling opportunities. So do watch out for those three areas right there. The market has come back in within some sort of a seller's region. Let's see what happens. If we don't see the market moving during the London session, then maybe you could find that during the US session, that's when the market could push itself off this coming back in within here. But also watch out for this region right here. Remember that when it comes to the indices, and the commodities were always fully technical. So in as much as the fundamentals could end up affecting things from time to time, ideally, we're fully technical. So for as long as we're holding beneath this region to the downside, we will be looking to see whether we can get selling opportunities. It's only when the market breaks above that region upside and actually holds above it that we will be changing and shifting our biases. So moving on into the next one. So this is the Dow Jones or the US 30 or the WS. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. For as long as we're holding above here, then the bias was to look for buys. And you can see an illustration of what Mitch was expecting. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the buyers reacting off there. The market came down lower. Consider the market tapped in within here. And you can see that at 4:30, the market really took off to the upside. But you can see that the market really turned around within this area quite aggressively. And you can see that the sellers really, really pushed the market down. And that's the reason why, we keep on pointing out managing your trades is very, very important. Sometimes especially when they're seeing profits running, and you forget that you still have a job to do. Entry and taking trades is one part of trading. Exits is the other part. If you mismanage your exits, then I don't think you'll be moving forward in terms of your trading career. So just make sure that you also watch out for your exits and manage your trades very, very well. So for this one, we will be watching out for these three. We're holding below here. The bias is to look for selling opportunities. Right now, the market seems like it's stuck within this region. Don't really look for selling opportunities, especially when the market is holding just above this area right here. Wait and see if you could get the market coming back in within this region. There's a possibility price could possibly come back in within here. You can see that it broke to the downside of this area. Also a visible time frame. So you could find that maybe when the market comes back in for a retest within there, then you could potentially get some good selling opportunities within there. If not, watch out for the region at the top right there. The last area where we will be watching out for sales, but also really be keen, just be keen in terms of what happens when the market comes back in within there. Because you could also find that the market could probe within that region. So don't be trigger happy in terms of looking for buying opportunities when that happens. Make sure that you do wait and see that the market actually upside. So moving on into the commodities. So for this one, this is silver. For silver yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So you can see that the market in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here. I wanted to see if we could get the market coming back in either within here. And you can see that the sellers within this region actually got the job done and they pushed the market. You can see that the market broke this region to the downside, bit of a small hole within this region. Although it could have been a bit tricky to grab that, and you can see that the market did continue to the downside. So for today, we will be watching out for these three. So do watch out for them. Let's see if we can get the market breaking and holding beneath this region, and we could resume with the sells. If not, if the market comes back to the upside of this area right here, because we don't yet have the confirmation that the market is actually holding to the downside of this region right here, then you could find the market coming back in within here. If that ends up being the case, then you could find that the sells could happen off here, maybe at around, just make sure that you watch out for that, and also watch out for the region at the top. For as long as we're holding beneath this region, should be to look for the selling opportunities. It's only when the market breaks and holds above that that we will start to look for buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold, this one is a bit tricky. Let's even start off with what happened yesterday. Whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out. The market was somewhere within here. We wanted the market to come back. You can see that there was an attempt of the buyers to push the market to the upside, but it seems that the sellers really had a field day on this one as well, just like we've seen with the rest of the commodities, or silver rather, in the indices. And you can see that the market did really end up coming down quite aggressively. So for this one, it's a bit tricky that the market has come back in within this region right here. You know, on the 1 hour time frame, it seems that the buyers who are actually holding the market are somewhere within this region right here. So the market went to the upside. So in as much as, yes, we were looking for buying opportunities within here, on the 15th, the fact that the market has come back in to challenge, this region right here, and the 1 hour, buyers are sitting somewhere within here. We're not too sure whether this could be some sort of an incitement and the market could easily end up coming back into the upside. So in the morning when we're looking at the charts, the market had just broken this region to the downside. So we're waiting to see what was going on. But I think it's possibly safe to say that maybe we could possibly try to see whether we could get sales. So I could adjust these levels. Let me see if I could just go up the 1 hour time frame. So it seems that maybe there's an SNR within here. I don't really end up chasing sales now, because you could find that the market could easily end up bouncing off this region to the upside. So if you end up hitting sales now, there's a possibility you could be quite late. The big boys got in on the sales, and the market was all the way at the top. So you end up hitting the sales now, then that means that you're quite late. In fact, they're handing over their liabilities to you, for you to actually end up carrying on with the journey. So you don't really want to end up doing that. So for this one, a bit of a tricky situation, but I think I can advise that maybe we can end up looking for selling opportunities. We could shift it on the watch list as well. So for this one, let's see what happens. For as long as at least price is holding, or we can't keep up with the selling opportunities, we could find the market coming back in within this area right here, and also do watch out for right here, which you've talked about. Unless the market breaks and holds beneath this region to the downside, I don't really think it would be wise to look for the sales right now. You could end up getting some sort of a head-on collision with, with the buyers within this area. You could find the market coming back in within here. If it does, then you could look for your selling opportunities within here. And remember that this being gold, this may seem small, but so just make sure that you watch out for that, or if the market comes back in within this region. But I think if we break above this region to the upside, and especially if the sellers don't end up somewhere within here and somewhere within here, and the market breaks to the upside and we get a hold and the buyers come up strong, I think at that point in time, there's a possibility we could end up resuming with the buying opportunities. You can see that gold has been going up for an extended period of time. So we're not quite sure whether this could be something to incite the sellers to come in, so that the buyers could also end up legs to end up being able to run all the way, maybe even higher than this. So we'll have to wait and see, but be careful. Let's see what really ends up happening within that particular. So I hope that guys have taken note of that. We definitely have switched things. You can see on the watch list right there. So make sure that you do end up taking note of the change on gold. So I think we can look at some questions on the Q&A. So Esther Kabiro there saying, good morning, team. Good morning back to you, Esther. Always happy to see you here. Karibu sana. I see Alan Rono there. You're saying, morning, George. Should the SL be after the entry? Then the TP, because I thought it was best the entry being in the middle, then SL below and TP above, or vice versa. Well, one thing we always say is, stop losses are non-negotiable. Take profits, you can either have them or not have them. Personally, I don't trade a lot with take profits. I trade a lot with alerts, whereby if the market gets to a certain region, then I can the trade, I can't decide to end up managing the trade. Unless I'm not going to be on the charts, maybe that's when I'll possibly end up putting a take profit on it. So take profits, I think even for many guys, even the things that we've taught guys, even from back in the day, we've always told guys that take profits can be negotiable. When it comes to stop losses, non-negotiable. You should never take a trade unless you know where exactly you're going to be putting your stop loss. Because remember, when it comes to the lot sizes, you need to know what lot size you're going to be taking, because the risk to reward on any trade, it's not the same on every trade. And that's the reason why you can't be trading the same lot sizes. I mean, if you want to scale up in terms of your lots, then that means you definitely need to know where your stop loss is going to be, even before you end up taking that trade. Then there's going to be a problem, because your R in terms of cash should ideally be the same all the time. So let's say, for example, if you're always going to be risking, like let's say if it's $100, that means that you should always be risking $100. Whether the stop loss is going to be at 20 pips, whether it's going to be at 30 pips. So what's going to be variable is actually going to be your lot size. So you really need to make sure that you know where your stop loss is going to be before entry. You can't take a trade and then after that maybe put your stop loss after that. Ideally, that's not trading. That's not the way trading works. Unfortunately, many people do it like that, and unfortunately, it ends up not working out very well for them. So I hope that you take a note of that, Alan, and of course, who may be asking. But in terms of moving the stop losses, once the market starts to move in your favor, that's also something that you definitely need to do, because it's not a guarantee that the market is actually going to get all the way till your ideal level in terms of your profits. When you take a trade, always remember that there are three outcomes that can come out. Either the market could hit your stop loss. That's the one that nobody wants experience, as a trader. The second one is the market could literally end up going all the way till your take profit. Everyone wants that. There's no trader who doesn't want that. But the third one, the market could actually go in your favor but not hit your take profit. And it could easily end up coming down and hit your stop loss. That one is the most painful, especially for most traders, especially considering the fact that at one point in time you had money, but you didn't end up taking that money, and the trade overall ended up resulting into a loss. So to avoid that, that's the reason why we always talk about make sure that you always actually end up moving. Avoid that, because that one will affect you psychologically the most. So I hope that sorts you out, Alan. So I see George Checker there saying, "Morning team, good to see you, George. Good to see your screenshot. I see that you're also asking which is the best entry mode you can advise." Well, what I can say is it's a couple of things. I know many people want to be told look for exactly this or look for exactly that, but it's a mix of things. What I would say is number one, buy with buyers, sell with sellers. At least that's out of the way. So when the market is backing within a region, we have some sort of buyers or sellers region. Let me see if I can get a good example that we had. I think there was one of the GBPs that was looking kind of ready to move. You see, like for example, like for this one, the market is backing within some sort of a seller's region. Now, first thing, ticked, perfect. Number two, do you see a sign of the big sellers coming in? We already saw that. Remember that even we went down to the smaller time frame I talked about, you can see that the buyers were slowing down and the sellers were really starting to really come in, within this region. And you can see based on the candles, the buyers going up, the sellers coming down, buyers going up before the sellers did end up showing up, within that region right there. So when you end up reading that and you're able to read that story, then I think you should be good. It shouldn't really be, I know many people want to be told, when these EMAs do end up crossing and this and that. Trading is not really that easy. There are a couple of things that you need to look at. But I think if you end up and also reading the story of what's happening within there. I know we talk about the market probing this and that. That's also good, because you're also trying to see whether you've gotten that incitement of the opposite party. Because remember, when you end up making money on the MT5, that money has come from somewhere. Someone lost that money somewhere. So if someone can get fooled, but you actually end up making the right decision, you're going to be taking money. So that's the reason why probes are important. So you can actually watch out for those three, I would say, George, and anyone else who may be wondering. So I see Patricia there, you're asking about gold. Let me put that there. So for gold, this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some sales. So you can see that we're just approaching the London market open. The buyers could push the market to the upside. If the market comes back in within here, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some sales to come down. So if the market doesn't get all the way till there, then wait and see if we could get a breach of this region to the downside and a hold. So that sorts you out, Patricia. And I see Daniela, good to see you, saying, "Morning, John, kindly show me yen. So for USD yen, so for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. So we will be waiting to see if we can get the market holding above here. So you can see that the sellers have come in aggressively. And this is the reason why we always keep on pointing out, wait and see. So let's see if we can get the market coming back into the upside and a hold. Then we could potentially try and see whether we could. If not, then we will be waiting for these two regions right here. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So I hope that sorts you out, Daniela. So I guess that's pretty much it. And from us, not really seeing anything else. Apologies for the slight sound hitch that we did end up having, but at least I think everything is clear now. So I guess we'll see you guys on Monday. So thank you so much for being with us the whole of this week. It's been another interesting week on the charts, and we're really grateful that you guys have walked this journey with us for another week. So hopefully we will see you guys. We do have a restful weekend. And as always, may the peace be with you. God bless.